We got it. Okay, so welcome, Fiona, to the podcast, The Future of Fitness. And so today we're going to speak a bit about your journey with, I guess, fitness, because you started as a personal trainer, similar to me, and how that's evolved and what your perception is on fitness in, I guess, in the broadest term, and what we need at this moment in time as like humanity and as people. So just a small
just a small question.
just a small question for you. So maybe you could just start by just telling us kind of a bit about where you started. So we know, well, I know that you started as potentially you started as a personal trainer in the wellness industry, and then kind of what led you forward from that point.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me, for eventually doing this. So deep gratitude to you for opening up the space for me to share. And so I started, I actually did a holistic health studies training first.
Right.
So that really brought in the holistic perspective. And then from there, so in that course, there was psychology, there was nutrition, there was fitness, and just all the different layers. Okay. And then from there, and massage was part of it, and aromatherapy. So that was straight in with that. And then I decided to study sports therapy and personal training. And so, that's where I started. I actually worked in a weight management clinic. And then from there, a personal training studio. And then just started my own business when I was 19, and kind of straight into corporate wellness. So I was on site in two of the biggest IT companies, but I was also teaching health and fitness classes in schools. And was actually working with kids from a year and a half, working with their mobility skills. Wow. Just playing games up to people in their 70s. So it was a massive range of people that I was working with, but it always came with a holistic approach. So it was never just one thing. If someone wanted to lose weight or they wanted to tone up, it's what's going on in your life. It's how can you feel supported nutritionally, mentally, physically, because it's never one without the other.
Okay, so you were really ahead of the times with that, I think.
Apparently so. It's kind of wild when I think of it, that the first thing I studied when I was 17 was straight into holistic health.
What drew you to get to holistic health in the first place?
Well, I thought when I was in school, so the kind of the backdrop to it is I was either wanting to study, I loved science, I loved biology, so I either wanted to be a physio or a PE teacher. And when I actually looked at both of those, it's to become a PE teacher, you have to teach specific subjects with that in Ireland, and I wasn't interested in doing that. And then with the physio, I only wanted to be sports specific. So I'm I'm not going to do all these years of study to then only have 6 weeks of what I actually want to do. So then I kind of just paved my own way in a sense, and luckily had a really good guidance counselor that she recommended holistic therapies, holistic health studies.
Isn't it interesting? I don't know if this is the same for you, but that sometimes those big life decisions we kind of are making, almost, for me, seems quite superficial. The decisions we're making, they're not necessarily really, really deep decisions, but then they've led you in the direction you've gone, which is kind of aligned with your soul. But because when I trained to become a yoga instructor, it was because people said I sounded like a yoga instructor. So I was like, oh,
Sure.
okay, maybe I got, it was seemingly flippant, but maybe it was just my soul was like, go do that. We don't really have a major reason why, but let's just
Sure.
go and do that and try that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Well, I suppose then like the kind of like backdrop to that was because
Yeah,
like I started as a professional model from when I was 15.
right.
So it was like, and I mean, growing up was like, we were very active. Like we were competitive swimmers growing up, like gymnastics, sailing, we were involved, like myself and my brother, we were always active and
Yeah.
like healthy. And so, grateful to like my mother and my father for the wonderful life that they did give us and support us in having. And with that, like nutrition as well, like, yeah,
Yeah.
my mom always making everything herself. And like, I would have these like gourmet lunch boxes going to school, like no joke.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So then you were a model, and then that got you interested in kind of wellness, or did you have another reason?
Well, it was always there, but what sparked that in my mind is like what you were saying about kind of like maybe like the superficial side of things. So it's like, yeah, having a good body and taking care of your body in the
Yeah.
superficial side of things for the image that you are basically selling,
Yeah.
your profession.
Yeah.
So, there's that like thread of that.
Yeah. That's interesting. Do you know randomly, do you know your birth chart well? Your astrology birth chart well?
Um, not really. I just know that I'm like an Aries sun and moon and rising Virgo.
Ah,
That's what I
interesting.
know.
If you
Yeah.
looked at your north and south node, that would be really interesting, because so your north node, your south node is kind of like tells us about the lives that you've lived before that you're kind of comfortable with, it's not pushing and then your north node is like where your soul is trying to evolve towards. And my south node is Leo, which is about
Leo.
being Leo, yeah, which is about
Okay.
being the center of attention and kind of shining. And my north node is Aquarius, which is more about being part of humanitarian and caring for the community and good stuff like that. And I used to be a dancer, so I was coming
Okay.
from performing and then moved into. So I
Yeah.
was thinking with you, it'll be interesting to see if yours was the same,
Yeah.
your north
Well,
and south node.
like for example, like I don't know as much on the astrology front.
Yeah,
Uh, but I do know I had a Vedic astrology reading, and
right.
she in Vedic astrology, you're different to like Western astrology. So I'm actually a Leo in Vedic astrology.
Ah,
Yeah, so which is quite interesting. But then, for example, when it comes to human design, so like I'm a projector, I'm a mental projector. So I'm
yeah.
like a guide, but it's part of my design. So I had like this reading with a friend of mine. She's amazing, Nicole. And yeah, it's like part of my design is that I'm here to be observed.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Which when I, reflect actually through my life, yeah, that is very much part of that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's yeah. And
yeah,
looking at also your Instagram as well, I would say it does come across as kind of like a muse in like a you're kind of I see you as quite vibrant and kind of um something for people to admire in some way, but in like
mm,
not just in a superficial
I understand. Yeah.
objectifying you way, but in a bringing light to people. And you seem to do it quite naturally and not
Mhm.
in a necessarily narcissistic way, but more in a just sharing that. So that's really
Yeah.
interesting. That
It
makes sense to
is.
me.
Yeah, it's kind of because like with the projectors, we're seers, we're guides. So it's like, yeah, just by I suppose like me living my purpose
Yeah.
just by doing that, that is the place for people to like observe. And, you know,
Yeah.
in the reading, she was reflecting back, she is like, that people are just kind of like watching from the sidelines. You know, they may not interact with you, but
Yeah.
realizing that by you being you, that it's actually creating effects in
Yeah,
life.
absolutely.
I just feel that on so many different levels, that it's like the more that we are embodied within ourselves and just being fully present with our beings and all parts of ourselves, just by being, like, you don't even have to speak, you don't
Mhm.
have to like do anything, but just by just being in that is already such potent medicine, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't it? Because it's more experiential, and it's something that sometimes is hard to put into words, but it's like a knowing and a
Mhm.
feeling. That's what I think from embodiment is it's goes, yeah, way beyond the rational mind, and is, yeah, that's I'm a manifesting generator,
Generator.
which
Okay.
explains me because I'm always learning this and learning that, and then I kind of forget about this, and I'm like obsessed with like trying different things and sharing them and trying and sharing them. So
Mhm.
it's so complex and it can boggle people's minds, but if you start to delve into it, it's really interesting.
That's it. And it's just like, you know, keep coming back to, it's like one of my teachers, it's like she's always like, kiss, keep
Hmm.
it short and simple, you
Yeah.
know. And it's
Yeah.
even just like that with the astrology, or with human design, or whether it's fitness or nutrition. It's like
Hmm.
literally just one step at a time, like baby steps, because it's so much easier to integrate.
Yeah.
And I there's a certain sense that I've learned that the hard way myself, because I'm kind of I'm like all or nothing, you know. I'm
Mm.
just hardcore, just like straight into it, and
Yeah.
then just like totally can overdo it, and then you're just
Hmm.
like, so it's with age and years that like I think I'm finding the balance with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just knowing myself more as well. That's
Mm.
what I actually need. And the other side, it's like with so I did this training, and I'm pretty sure you did as well. Something similar is like red alchemy, menstrual cycle awareness.
Yeah.
And that is just like everything to like support you, like mentally, physically, emotionally, and like on fitness, on nutrition. It's just like it is our guide of our cycle for
Yeah.
all of life.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
always think when I share that with people and explain it in that way about the cycle and what the power of it, it always just resonates with women. They're just
Mm.
like, oh, yeah, that really makes sense. And
Yeah.
it feels like, for me, it feels like a safe container, my cycle, that I can move through. And it gives me the balance that I need in terms of my yin and yang and my light and dark, and it gives me that understanding of the necessity to play between the two ends of that, and to kind of, yeah, it teaches me so much, and some of it is so profound for me that I try to explain it in words and then I can't.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you. But I like, yes, sharing it with women like 100%. But I also love to share it with men, because I feel
Mm,
it's so important for them to understand as well. And it's not just within the female form, it's our earth, you know,
yeah.
understanding the cycles, and to not expect like the earth or the woman that you're with, or your sisters, or like your mother, whoever, understanding that, you know, what we're in a sense expected to be in like a perpetual summer, you know.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
the earth and females, and it's like for them to, I mean, it's so important for us to understand and embody that, but for the men to be able to support us in that as well, I feel is really important.
Yeah, definitely. So you, going back to your journey, you went into holistic. So you kind of were holistic pretty much the whole time. So more holistic, I would say, than me. And then, but then you kind of moved away from that in a sense. What was next on your journey after you?
With the personal training, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So like during that time, like, yeah, so I realized that it was, yeah, I was having lots of like overtraining injuries during that time, because I was just doing too much, and being the Aries that I am, and the fire that gets you going is also the fire that can burn you out.
Yes.
So I kind of was like, realizing, okay, well, I need to start like shifting something here to be a bit easier for my body. So then I went and I studied Pilates. So I did like both mat and reformer. And Pilates is like amazing. Like it's incredible for your physical body. But I suppose even before that, like I did start to practice yoga myself and going to classes. But also during this time, of course, there was like my Saturn returns.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, and also just going through like some pain in my life and realizing that, okay, things need to like shift and change. And the reason why I'm bringing that around is because like with that Saturn return and doing like rebirthing was the first form of therapy that I did. And then yeah, started working with plant medicine. But with all of those journeys, what it was like the layers of an onion being like peeled away. And it was like coming back to what made me happy when I was a little girl. And so that is where my connection with yoga came back, because I was a gymnast as a kid. So it's kind of like gymnastics for adults, but then has this like real spiritual background as well, that was like really helping to support my being, and to really begin to see the world and life through a new set of eyes, and to like with yoga to continually like tap into the divine that is there within each of us, but that we just need to take the moment to press pause and to come back to our hearts, basically.
I like the fact that you have a kind of light, you had a light kind of reason for going back to it, which was the playful element, and then also a really deep element and too. So it feels like a really nice balance of. And I was something that I was recently thinking about was that as you go down the spiritual path, as one does, it can get quite easy to get obsessed with, or in the depth of myself. I'm like, love a deep conversation and then forget the superficial, nice, light stuff in life to just, we also really need to enjoy those things as well. And it makes me appreciate those who perhaps don't always want to have a deep conversation, to then enjoy all of that, to have that balance. So it seemed that you had that in your journey, which is interesting.
Yeah, it is. And it's a funny one, like what you're saying there, because I'd be very much, I'm a deep diver.
Yeah, same.
Like I'm just like straight in there. It's almost like I don't have a choice, that's just the way like my brain works. And on top, like I was saying about human design, I'm a mental projector. So it's like my mind never stops creating. And like that can be creating very beautiful things, but I mean it can also go on the other side as well. But
Yeah.
luckily that I have learned to, yeah, to be able to kind of like catch myself in that and like bring myself back.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Catching yourself as quite a creative being. And perhaps all of us need to, that's a really good lesson, I think, of learning that we are always creating. And it's then, do we choose to create something like a negative story or something, or do we choose to turn our attention? So it may be actually, just thinking about it, if we're in a place of where we feel a lot of stories being created, is that a really good moment to then go and do some art or do something creative to change the direction of that? Because maybe there is an energy of creativity moving through the body.
Yeah, for sure. And like what's coming through there is, yeah, I want to share about it was my second time smoking DMT.
Okay, yes,
And
interesting.
because there's medicine in the story. So like the vision was, so like when I had like the vaporizer and I was like gone, and I was in this place where it's just like all these beautiful like patchwork of colors, and there's this very relaxing music, and it's just all very lovely and like floaty and like hyperspace or whatever you want to call it, just like so beautiful. But then what would happen was my eye would get caught by these like teeny tiny little black holes, like teeny tiny black holes, and my attention would be brought to that. And each time I was being brought into those dark little holes, it was like these energies were just like pulling me out. And they're like, no, no, like move your body, enjoy yourself, like really just move through your physical body. And then it kept happening again. It's like dark hole, whoop, I'd go. And like for me, what that actually represents, it's like any time that maybe there is like some anxiety or some like dark thoughts or feelings or whatever, any darkness, whatever that looks like, whatever shape or form it takes, the message for it was like, just come back to your body and move your body, because emotions are just, it's all about like energy in motion. So if we actually move our body, whether it's going for a walk or having a swim or having a dance or doing some yoga or Pilates or a workout, it's going to move. Or yeah, dancing, I said dancing already. It just moves that through the body rather than just getting stagnant and holding it in your physical body.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's not about like bypassing the emotion, but it's allowing that emotion to move through you. And that brings me to like when I read this book by Gabriel Roth, Maps to Ecstasy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd highly recommend it to
Okay.
read it. But
Okay.
it's like noted.
Yeah, I'm such
but
a book nerd, so I'm like, yes.
I know I can't stop buying books. It's just
Path.
ridiculous.
What's the book? Path.
Maps to Ecstasy.
Maps to Ecstasy.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Gabriel Roth. But like what she's speaking in there, it's like, all the different parts of ourselves and like all the different emotions that can arise, and that we can use different music and different movements to move through that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, it's because, if something is arising and you just like stay with it, and there's nothing wrong with sitting with an emotion, but like not, I don't feel it's necessary to stay with it for an extended period of time.
No, it should. I definitely think it needs to move through the body,
Yeah.
and I kind of understood it, and then when I decided to stop drinking alcohol, I was like, okay, then now I'm going to actually have to feel everything.
Sure.
There's nowhere to go. And so I thought, okay, so I'm preaching this to other people, so I have to, you know, actually do it myself. And so I got through like quite a difficult emotional, what people would perceive as quite a difficult emotional time, relatively easily, because I just let myself feel the emotions, and I didn't stay in my head with it, ruminating, and also not over talking to people about it. I just, when the emotion came up, when I got triggered, I'd go and dance, or I'd go and move, or I'd just almost just sit and imagine the energy, the sensation of it moving through the body. Because I said to a friend the other day who was talking about a fear of something, and I was like, well, the thing is, you're not going to die from the sensation of fear. Like, you might die inadvertently if you constantly try to not feel the fear, because you'll do alcohol and drugs and all that stuff. But if you let yourself just feel the feeling of fear, it's just going to be a bit uncomfortable. And it seems quite simple, and it kind of is, but
yeah. And I feel the other thing as well, like what we have the opportunity is to, and I feel that's where like yoga comes in as well. It's like we have the opportunity to be the observer of our thoughts before we decide to hold them, you know? And I feel that like that comes back to our breath, literally, you know, because if we are like shallow in our breath and we're not like breathing into our bellies, that helps us to ground us into our bodies. If we're having the shallow breath, it's like we're so caught up in our heads and in our minds, and like our monkey minds can just take over. But it's the moment that we like take the opportunity to slow our breaths down, to come back to our hearts, come back to our bodies, then we have more spaciousness within our beings, so that we're not getting caught up on this monkey mind that will take us off on God knows.
It's very creative.
Yeah. Just like with that as well, like I'm doing this Tantra of Life course.
Right, yeah.
And so it's a lot about like consciously communicating. And so with that, it's like even just having a conversation with someone, with a loved one, or like whoever, it could be like colleague and work. And it's like, you know, if an emotion is coming up, so it's like, okay, well, this is what I'm feeling right now. And the story that I'm making up in my head is this. So rather than, because, you know, there can be so much where we can actually project our stuff onto someone else. It's like, you made me feel this, you know, it's all your fault. It's like, no, empower yourself and come back. This is what I'm feeling. And the story I'm making up in my head is this, this, and this. And then the person has the opportunity to be like, no, that's not what I meant. Because you can let that go if you don't actually say it. That can, you can just go off on a whole other journey, and it's like 99% of the time that it can like not be the truth. And you've just wasted time, you know.
And I would
Instead of
use
carrying
that. I would use that story that you've created up potentially as something to do with what you believe about yourself, or the person believes about themselves. And so I would use that trigger of that story, and then there's the emotion that's kind of attached to it that is like obviously quite prevalent in the body because it keeps getting pushed down. I would use that as an opportunity to release that emotion that comes up as well with it. So that perhaps the next time the story comes up, there's not so much emotional charge because you've released it.
True. Yeah. Yeah. Very much. Yeah.
So what would you say your kind of your current practices are. I mean, that, you know, I'm sure there's quite a few and it changes, but what's your, if you were say you're working with somebody now, what would you have any like base things that you work with and other sprinkle things in there and bits and pieces?
Yeah, there's a multitude. There's so many different things,
Yeah.
but yeah, like breath, you know, has always been, and I mean, you know, if we're not breathing, we're not living, are we? So
Mm,
like, you know, the breath is everything. And even from like the days of, yeah, of my personal training, and then into Pilates and into yoga, and yeah, it's all about the breath. So number
mm,
one, and like the yoga that I teach, it's like it's a breath centric practice. So yeah, like breath, like creative visualization is something that's very big as well for me, and especially as a projector, like visionary, like that's really important to tune into that, and inviting others to do it as well. And yeah, like nutrition, obviously, but it's also just making sure that it's colorful and alive and exciting, and it doesn't have to be complicated with the nutrition. It's like, you know, just the simple things I do every year, like a 30-day green smoothie challenge, so that I'm like, all you need to do is add one green smoothie at the beginning of your day for 30 days. And that's huge. And definitely like movement. So whatever the movement is, whether it's yoga, swimming, going for a walk in nature, having a dance, and sleep is also very important.
mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So there's a lot. I mean, there's so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And presence is with whatever you're doing,
Mm.
is really important.
And do
Yeah.
you focus on, I guess, so you said also embodiment is quite a big thing for you, is, I guess that ties into all of that. Do you
It
think that
does.
connects to, sorry, go on.
No, go on.
Um, do you think that connects to the feminine energy in a way? Is that a thing that's on your mind around?
Embodiment.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. With the embodiment, because I feel like there's been so much shame around our bodies, and so much has been like projected onto our bodies, and our bodies being like highly sexualized.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel it's the acceptance of like our sensuality, of like awakening our senses, and
Yeah.
that can be like the simplest thing of like, you know, like nice like textures of, you know, of clothing on your body, or like nice aromas,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know. It's, yeah, it's just bringing you back to your body, and yeah, embodying like all that we are, and also like embodying that yes, we are sexual beings, and this sexual energy, this life force energy, this creative energy is how we are here on this planet. So it's allowing all of that to flow through your being and out into everything that we are, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, with that, the tantra mantra,
Oh,
which is
tantra
all about
mantra, I like
the tantra
that.
mantra,
Mm,
kama pujaye namaha. So that is all about sacred love making in all that we do, you know. It's like in holding your cup, you know. It's like in receiving the tea. It's, you know, that like slowing down enough. It doesn't have to be like all day every day, but to bring parts of that into your life. that everything is an act of sacred lovemaking.
It makes me think of, in some ways, that in our kind of current world, we have all these like big plans and these ideas of grandiosity. And, you know, we're supposed to be reaching thousands of people with our message and our programs and stuff. And which leaves us feeling quite dissatisfied because, you know, I mean, it's quite hard to do that, actually. It takes quite a lot of work, and then we miss out on the smaller things. And then it makes me think of the opposite, which is to like see the sacredness and value of what is in your immediate surroundings and who is in your immediate surroundings. And making your like home life a sacred, you know, washing the dishes a sacred practice, and being present with people sacred. And for me, it feels like a bit of activism, going against that need to kind of dilute ourselves so much, and just focusing what is on in our smaller communities and what's immediately around us, and bringing more juiciness and fullness to. And it's actually really satisfying to live like that. You just need more simple things. And the energy that you give off naturally is more juicy and radiant, and kind of because you're just like savoring everything.
Yeah, I love juicy.
That doesn't surprise me.
Because it's like part of that is, so I've been like over and back to Portugal for retreats. And it's like being aware of like how I feel when I'm on another land, you know, and it kind of, if what I feel is like I'm able to be more myself, and I'm able to express myself, and I'm able to like bloom, and I'm able to kind of like dress in the way that I desire, you know. It feels like there's all these different layers. But like what I've been working with is that keeping that same energy and feeling, and continue to tap into that while living in Ireland, you know, and bringing those juicy jungle vibes to Ireland, because that's the medicine that is needed here. You know?
That's really true. I was saying to some of my retreat people, just imagine when you get home, imagine like that you're going on retreat for like, say, an hour of your day, and just get into that frame of mind of how would you treat yourself, how would you behave if you were just like to go on retreat, even for just 10 minutes. And I like that's like bringing back what you found, and kind of spreading that into your own environment.
Yeah, because it's like this is the other side that I feel that is so important. It's the integration process. It's like, because you know, it's great to go on retreat, and it's great to go to your yoga class, or you go to whatever it is, you go to like a women's circle or a sound bath. But then it's like, how do you integrate what you have experienced into your daily life? And I really feel that's where the holy shift takes place, you know?
Yes. Yeah, well, then it becomes less about you being, I guess, in some ways just a participant of these things, and then it becomes more of a lifestyle. It changes who you are as a person, because you recognize that that's the way you want to live all the time, not just on retreat. And I've definitely felt that shift myself, probably only in the last few years, where I was like, it didn't feel like I should be doing these practices. It was like I needed them or wanted them,
or
and
I get to.
Yeah. But I think sometimes it happens is that your kind of soul pulls you in a direction, and you're kind of not maybe mentally ready to be there, but you'll kind of just show up to these things, and then it all kind of starts to fall into place, and then you're like, oh yeah, this is where I'm meant to go. But that's why I'm saying sometimes we make those more flippant decisions, and we don't really know why, but we've been pulled in that direction.
Yeah, that's what I normally like to call it's the sacred fool.
I love that.
So that is that, like, you're just being drawn somewhere, you know, it's like your heart, your soul is like you're going, and it's almost like your mind isn't there, you know, and it's just you end up in this place. You're just like, okay, well, this is exactly where I need to be. Or even sometimes what I found as well, that it may not be so instant, but it might be a little while after that all the pieces of the puzzle start to like
Yeah,
click together.
I
Or
found that many
someone,
times.
yeah, or someone might say something, and then it's just like, yeah, just something, some part of like the picture just comes together. I love that.
Yeah, and that's like a bit of after a while, I think you kind of start to surrender to like the mystery of things, and you kind of go, it doesn't fully make sense right now, but I'm just going to go with it, and
Trust.
maybe trust. Exactly. And that's actually that act of surrender and stuff is more of a feminine quality, because it's less calculated and you don't really 100% know why.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to be like, you maybe you just go, you know what, maybe this will mess up, but who we don't really know.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like at the moment, you know, on one side, it's like I've had such an expanse into the feminine, you know. So that's like one aspect. And then the other side is like now bringing in, so I had that like having this huge expansion with the divine feminine, and I was like having the divine masculine to actually be able to hold the divine feminine, so that sacred union is there within me.
Yes.
So that's very much like what I'm working with at the moment, and actually using the divine masculine for clarity and support, and to help like contain and like, yeah, bring more ease in.
I literally had the same thing recently. That
Yeah.
aha moment. I kind of knew what I was doing. I was holding space. I was kind of summoning my inner masculine to hold space for myself. And I was doing it through still showing up for work, still exercising. That was giving me a sense of kind of structure. And then, but then I was creating spaces for my feminine, which at that time was like needed to be emotional and cry. And I was holding space for myself to do that. And it was amazing. It felt so empowering to realize that it was all in myself. And I used my cycle actually a lot with that. So in my yang part of my cycle, kind of after the period to ovulation, I was like using that more masculine energy to kind of set myself up, and then creating the space in my more yin part of my cycle to like release. And that was really cool.
I love it. Like I feel so blessed and grateful to be a woman. To
Yeah.
be an embodied woman, and to have this like opportunity, like especially with our cycle, that we have this monthly cycle, that we get to process things on such like a deeper level, and that we have that opportunity when we are bleeding to like to take a full view. It's like zooming out. It's like what has happened in the past month that I'm ready to let go of,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, I love that.
Me too.
It makes me happy. And it's funny because like how the shift can change, because you know before, you know, like years ago, you know, it's just like I'm bleeding, you know, and now I'm like, yes, I'm bleeding. It's like now
Same.
it's like giving myself permission to rest and to slow down, and I have like my rituals that I do, and
Yeah.
I love it.
Would you care to share the rituals that you do? Or are they private?
Sure, fuck it, why not? Well, like each month is like slightly different because it depends where I am. But yeah, like for like when I'm bleeding, that I actually will give my blood back to the earth. And I also like, so you're talking about radiance, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like I do like blood facials.
I've heard of that, yeah.
And it's like the most empowering thing ever. And your skin is just absolutely like radiant and glowing after. And yeah, it's like the best facial that you could ever have. You know, it's like with this blood, it would actually be nourishing a baby.
Yeah.
So hello.
Yeah.
Like this is like liquid gold.
Yeah.
It's like such a shame that people are just flushing it down the toilet. Like, this
yeah.
is our life-giving blood.
Yeah.
Anyway, when I am giving it back to the earth, it's like what I was saying is that, you know, it's like, what is it that I want to let go of from this past cycle that is no longer serving me? But then also having that intention that giving it back to like Mother Earth to nourish her.
Yeah.
And I mean, for like with the blood as well, it's just like, you know, if you're not up for doing like a full facial, to just put some like blood on your third eye area, because it's just during this time, it's a time of visioning, you know, and like dreams are heightened. And like if I have, like, again, depending where I'm at, like I do try to like free bleed at nighttime. And that has just heightened my dream time and my visionary time like even more.
Wow.
It's like really potent.
Because you're allowing the flow, aren't you? You're not stopping anything. You're just allowing things to move freely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
It's it's really special. Yeah, so that's kind of it. And because I remember like when I was doing my training, the red alchemy, and I remember like friends of mine that are like, they're not really, well, one kind of is into like this kind of stuff and like holistic, but the other one is like curious but like isn't into it like at all. And I was telling them that like I did like a facial with my blood, and they're like, she's not good. She's not what she's good. Oh my god, she's gonna say it. Oh my god. And I'm like, fuck it. They were kind of disgusted. But like, you know,
but that's
what,
it's just so much. It's kind of to be expected, isn't it? Because it's like, not because it is disgusting, but because of all the programming so deep in people around it. So
I
that's
mean,
obviously going to be their instant. They might, you know, if they're curious, they might go away and it might, you know, marinate a little bit with them. And
yeah,
but that
but
sometimes
like,
that's people's initial reaction.
sure, but they're like, well, your skin is fucking fantastic anyway.
Yeah, yeah, it is,
So it
and it
must
is.
be doing something.
I would definitely try it.
Yeah, but then like the other one was like painting with your blood, so actually like
Yes.
creating, so kind of coming back to what we were saying about being creative. And I remember I did that like for the first time, and my friend, so he's like, yeah, he's like 50-year-old like Italian man that we'd like, you know, walk the dogs together, like open-minded, like I had shared with him all about like what we're doing, and he grew up with yoga and blah blah blah. So I invited him in for like a cup of tea, and my art pad was there, you know, and I was like boiling the kettle, and then he starts flicking through it, and he's like, Fiona, what's this? And I'm like,
yeah, because
like,
it's,
you know, it's like yeah, it's a very like intimate
Yeah, I was gonna
thing,
say, yeah, it's
you
quite
know,
tender. Yeah.
very tender. Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was a
you
funny
weren't
moment.
like, it wasn't like you'd psyched yourself up, like, I'm gonna share this with people, I'm ready. It was kind of like caught off guard. I totally understand that.
Yeah,
Um,
but with all of that, it's yeah, like, you know, like the shame can still come up,
yeah, of course.
and like, oh my God, is this weird? But it's just the more that I go, it's just accepting all parts of yourself, and it just feels so natural,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it feels so empowering.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess sometimes there is just like that you don't want to share that with everyone, you know?
Well, because if you
Only
don't
the
want to
people
be,
that
yeah, that you
are open with.
trust. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
because I just definitely think that there's times when we are more tender and we choose carefully who we share stuff with. If we don't want that criticism, we don't need it,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you don't need to.
For sure. Because I do, like, I mean, I have experienced that because with all that expansion and all of that blooming, that I've had situations where, like, that judgments from like others or things that people have said, it just made me like
Yeah,
shrink and
yeah.
close, you
Well, so
know?
that's interesting because well, in my course I did the Red School course,
Beautiful.
and they speak about when you've just finished your period and you're in it. They call it inner spring, and in that time you have so many ideas, and you're almost kind of like a little baby duckling, and so they
Mm-hmm.
say that's not the time to like start sharing. You wait until you're kind of more to ovulation where you're a little bit hardened and ready. You can
Yeah.
take that criticism, and you can then kind of, if you share too soon, you start to shrink in because you're not ready for that. So you want to like establish your ground a bit more.
Sure. And like I'm just I'm just like getting visions of
Mhm.
like, you know, of a cervix, you
Mhm.
know, because it's like the way the cervix is changing throughout the cycle as well. You know, at one part
Yes.
it's just like so like soft,
Yeah.
you know, and like open. And then like another part, it's like quite hard and like closed, you know. So it's
Mm.
just, yeah.
What part is it more open? Is it ovulation to menstruation?
I can't remember exactly
Hmm.
because I feel it's definitely, I think it's quite soft actually when you're bleeding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's more that way. It's soft and
Yeah.
open because it's like releasing,
Yeah.
and it's not about receptivity,
Mhm.
about like releasing. Yeah, which is
Mm. Yeah, I have to look that one up. Can't remember all the
no,
facts.
like there's so much
Yeah.
for us to continually discover. Like the
Mm.
cervix is like no one ever really talks about it.
What's your, I guess you might have said this already, but maybe in a more, in some way. What is your kind of your mission in some ways? What do you think your I guess in also like there's like a lot going on in the world right now. For me, I feel like it's coming to a tipping point and a lot of darkness is coming up because it is gonna naturally as more light comes up, and
Mhm.
it's a kind of being dissembled, and more than ever we need to be, my sense of activism is trying to wake people up through these practices so that they find their own sovereignty and can see the illusions and that kind of stuff. What would you
Mhm.
say that you have something that is your
I
mission at the moment?
I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, like my mission is to return people back to their natural state of bliss. So in all of like the modes and the tools and the skills, it's just like returning you back to like your truth, and to know how magnificent you truly are, you know. And I really feel like on that side, it's like pain is healed with pleasure.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, that's it. It's just bringing people back to their natural state of bliss, like tuning them back into the divinity that is there within them at all times. It's just taking those times to come back to that. So yeah. And like,
do you think,
go on.
do you think there can be pleasure in the pain, in terms of
I'm glad you asked. Because like what you're sharing about, you know, like the darkness, and like what I always share with people is we all come from darkness. Darkness is nourishing. Like we all come from the darkness of our mother's wombs, and seeds are planted into the dark soil of the earth to grow towards the light. Yeah. And it's like we all have shadow sides, you know. There's the shadow feminine, there's the shadow masculine, and so I'm reading this book as well. It's part of my training, my breath play training. It's called Existential Kink, and it's all about
I'm gonna have to read that.
unmasking your shadow side and bringing the unconscious to the conscious, so that it's actually finding pleasure in the pain. So yeah, it's like I feel only recently enough started dancing with the dark and dancing with the shadow side. And it's incredible, like, because I've just been dancing so much with the light for so long. It's like, but I also need to integrate and incorporate my shadow side. And like with that, the existential kink, it's like we all have some kind of kinks, but if we are unconscious of them, they're going to play out in unhealthy ways in our lives. But at least if we are aware of the kinks that we like, then we can actually find pleasure in whatever the kink is. So it's I feel like I'm just beginning the journey, you know, and with that, playing with that. But it's it's lots of fun.
Thank you. That's yeah, I love what you said, and it makes so much sense. So thank you for sharing all of your wisdom. And I think there's so much in what you've said today that is there's so many nuggets of things that hopefully will, you know, trigger something in someone's mind who's listening to this that will help them. And like we know, there's just so much in it. So you take what you need from it. And
it's like take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't. And I feel I think that's really important. And always it's like the invitation is what feels right for you and what doesn't, because that's empowerment, you know. And we are just here to guide, and that may not feel right for you, and that's totally perfect. That's totally okay.
And one day you'll see that we were right. Yeah, thank you. No, thanks for spending time and being open and honest.
Yeah, I know. Well, I feel sometimes I try and hold it back and I can't.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will, well, just to finish off, if you wanted to share about kind of anything that you have coming up, and where, if there's anything you would like people to find you at, or.
Okay, so my Instagram handle is Healthy Fiona. And there's loads there's loads coming up. because I'm based in Ireland, but have, for example, like I'm cooking for silent retreats, and there's a beautiful ritual retreat, and also doing a scent sound bath and yoga. We're going to do a sunrise and a sunset with a friend of mine, Hannah. And then, I'll be teaching workshops at a festival in Ireland called All Together now. One is Bliss Bubble Yoga, and the other one is Sensual Connection. And then another silent retreat. It just keeps going. But then with my beautiful friend Isha, we are doing what's called Wild Beings Being Seen. So it's a sacred circle and transformational photography. And that's so potent, especially coming back to the embodiment side of things. And then we're actually going to be taking Wild Beings Being Seen to Berlin, to a festival in a castle outside of Berlin. And then other retreats coming up, just like your beautiful one that I will be nourishing, your beautiful retreaters in October.
In October in West Cork, we'll be doing a retreat together.
On a beautiful piece of land that has a private beach.
Yes. It's such a beautiful space. I can't wait to go back. Just need to kind of get a little bit more into my masculine with it and work on it a bit more.
Yeah, beautiful. So that's pretty much it for now. Well, but if you just follow me on Instagram, all the updates of all the fun and playfulness happens.
And even just to observe you.
Just observe me.
Nice. Okay, well, thank you.
Okay,
thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
We'll speak soon.